And hello and welcome to the Gary Dunn Show for September 20th, 2016. I'm your host, Gary Smith. And on today's show, we're going to talk to Coach Dunn about last week's victory against the Millersville Marauders, and then we're going to take a look back at last year's game against Seton Hill, a look ahead at this coming week's game against Seton Hill, and then we're going to take a look around the PSAC in the final week of crossover play, see the scores, standings, and all that fun stuff. But without further ado, we're going to bring on head coach Dunn. And Coach, I'm kind of a sports historian, and even I couldn't find anything in the books to see a better start for a head coaching career than you've had in the first 2 weeks. 140-3, and the team looks like they're ready for the season.
We've been fortunate. We played we strung a couple good games back to back, and really played well in all three phases of the game. So I've been pleased with where we're at. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a tough opponent this week, so we're going to get back to work and see if we can keep it rolling.
And before we look into more in depth on the Millersville game Saturday, we talked last week, Coach, about how your excitement and just the enthusiasm you had leading the team out for the first time as head coach on the road. But what was it like at Adamson Stadium on Saturday in front of the home fans?
I tell you, it was great. I had a lot of family and friends back. We had a lot of football alumni guys that were back, so I stopped out at their tailgate before the game just to say thanks for coming, and got to see some of those guys after the game. Had a lot of my former teammates here, so it was special being back at Adamson Stadium and playing in front of a good home crowd on Family Day.
I tell you what, whatever phone calls you made, it worked, because the weather looked a little dicey early in the game, or early in the day when we got there to set up, but a beautiful afternoon for college football. And when the whistle blew, I mean, your team was just ready for it. And you know, when I was talking to my friends, you know, they saw the score first week 79-3. And then 61-0, and they're like, "Oh, the offense is amazing." And well, that's the case, but every facet of your team is playing well: offense, defense, and special teams.
Absolutely, we've had touchdowns in every phase so far. We had a big kickoff return for a touchdown last week. Defense scored on a fumble, and then kickoff scored on a fumble, on a scoop and score, and then obviously offense, we put up some points. So to get points in every phase of the game is unbelievable, and I really like the way we're starting those third quarters. It's been a trend the last 2 weeks, so hopefully we can keep that going, but it's been good so far.
Well, one of our former announcers texted me, and he always said, you know, if the most important, in his opinion, the most important drive of the game was the first drive of the second half. And he texted me Saturday after he saw the box score, and he's watching a little bit, but he missed the first two kickoffs. He said they never even got to a first possession. I mean, you figure kick return, and I don't think I've ever seen that.
I don't think I have either. And the funny thing is, the week before at Cheney, we returned the kickoff to the 2-yard line, scored in one play, and then the defense went out and got a pick six right away. So we put 14 points up at Cheney real quick, and then the same thing happened to Millersville. We get the big kickoff return, and then Arnell Farmer, who's doing a great job on special teams for us, strips a ball, gets up off the strip, and leads Leslie Coles into the end zone. So it was a great individual play by Arnell Farmer, but a really great start to the second half.
Yeah, when we were looking at the replay of that kickoff, the scoop and score, I mean, that's pretty much the poster for how you form tackle, the strip, and then get up and just help your teammates score.
Yeah, it was. Our guys got a good kick out of that yesterday, watching that on film during our special teams meeting, and that's what we preached to our guys. It was great effort by Arnell Farmer to not only cause the fumble but lead it into the end zone, and that's the kind of effort we're looking for on every play.
And switching gears a little bit to the offensive side of the ball, we talked a little bit. You know, obviously this is your first 2 games as head coach, but I think a little overlooked on the players' side of it. Michael Keir is the first 2 games of his starting career as a college quarterback. I know he played a little bit last year, but you know, when you're the guy, that's a little different. And he's had a great first 2 games.
Yeah, he started really well, and I think part of that is the people around him, and Mike will be the first one to tell you that. We've got some guys that are making plays on the outside for him. We're trying to be a balanced offense, and I think we're doing that to a point. We ran the ball pretty effectively. So we're taking a lot of pressure off Mike with the guys we got out wide, and then being able to run the football as well.
And I tell you what, it must be nice to be able to throw to a guy like Gary Brown. I mean, I'm 40 years old, but I think I complete a few passes to him, because he's on another level, at least the first 2 weeks.
You know what? He's doing a great job. And Millersville was rolling coverage to him, so Tom Green had a couple big catches early in the game because they kept rolling to Gary, and Mike read it right and was able to hit Tom Green on the other side, who's doing an extremely good job right now too. So when we get more guys stepping up, and I think we're going to have some other receivers that will step up here in the next couple of weeks, it's going to make it hard for defenses just to try and stop Gary. But Gary does a tremendous job. Had a big game. I think he had 3 touchdowns. Did a really good job on a post corner rod, and then had obviously the big kickoff return. So Gary's special, and we love having him here.
And those guys cannot do what they've been doing the first week without the work up front, because coming into this season, it wasn't like the entire offensive line was back for years. You had some different players coming in, and I can't think really of any really hits on Michael Kier, any penetration. That offensive line is really coming together.
They're doing a nice job. They got to him once on Saturday. He took a shot off the edge, still completed the ball, which was good to see. But I was giving Mike a hard time in the office. I said, that's the first time you've been hit since April, because we don't hit our quarterback at practice. So he's got a big bruise on his arm, and I was giving him a hard time this week. But he's doing a nice job, and the offensive line is doing a great job protecting their, along with the running backs. They've kept him clean the first 2 weeks.
And on the other side of the ball, like I said, we talked about the 140 points in 2 weeks, but almost probably as impressive, if not more impressive, is the only 3 points the defense has given up. I mean, this day and age in college football, that's almost impossible the way the offenses are. And we talked a little bit before we came on, before the camera started rolling, that that first drive Millersville had, their best play was a quarterback scramble. But after that, whatever adjustments your coaching staff made, I think if they had more than 3 first downs the rest of the game, that might be generous.
Yeah, our guys are playing with tremendous effort right now on that side of the ball. I think they've got a little bit of confidence. We're an aggressive style defense. We want to put pressure on an offense, and I think our guys enjoy that. We had some great individual effort on Saturday. Juwan Turner gets the sack and the scoop and score himself, which was nice to see. But they're playing with great confidence right now. And great energy is what we like. We talk about being a 6-second effort team. We're going to play every 6 seconds as hard as we can, and they're really showing that on that side of the ball right now.
And quickly, before we have about another minute or so before we look at the highlights from last week's game, and believe me, you don't want to go get anything to drink or eat because these highlights are phenomenal, but the third phase of the game, special teams, punt coverage, kick return, punt returns, and also I think William Brazil might be leading the nation in attempts, both in extra points and field goals. If he's not, he's in the top 10. Right. And that's been a solid part of your team as well.
It has, and we spent a lot of time on it during practice. Coach Larry Wilson, our special teams coordinator, does a phenomenal job getting those guys ready, and it goes back to effort on that too. Our kickoff team right now is really giving great effort, and we try and create long fields for their offense, and our kickoff team's been able to do that. Then they, like we talked about earlier, put 7 points on the board. Our kickoff return team's doing a good job. We got some things to clean up in that phase, but the effort is 100% there, and Coach Wilson does a great job of coaching those guys, and you can see it on Saturdays.
And let's take a look back at this Saturday and take notes, because you're going to see every phase of football at a very high level on these highlights from last Saturday's game against Millersville. And after the break, you're going to see last week's highlights against this coming week's opponent, Seton Hill. So you're watching the Gary Dunn Show right here on CUTV.
High snap, but J.J. Page handles it, and there was penetration in there. And they just throw it up right to Aaron Terry, and he's going to take this one back. And there's some blocking downfield, and there is. He's running down the right sideline, and he's going to take it one man to beat. Nick Grissom in the backfield yet again. He's going to grab it and just run into the end zone untouched. Nick Grissom now putting the Vulcans on the board. Chip shot here for William Brazil as he gets it up and puts it through, making the score now 10-0 in favor of California. As Page now looks to throw, and pass was broken up at Juwan Turner, a sack. That's going to be a fumble, and he's going to bring it into the touchdown. So another crazy play from California. Here, Redding looking to his left yet again. Here staying in the pocket. Gary Brown wide open, just losing a defender there and getting into the end zone. And it looks like it's going to go right over to Gary Brown as he receives it about the 2-yard line. So making his way right up the center of the field, getting a lane, finding space now. One man to beat, cuts over and just getting away from his defender, and he's going to bring this back for a touchdown for California. What a way to open up this second half. Now Millersville just trying to put something on the board here. A big hit opens up a great hole, and the ball is out, and California is going to pick it up, and that is number 32 for California. That is going to be Todd Foles Jr., a defensive back, bringing up another touchdown. And Michael Kier right over to Gary Brown, 1 foot in, and that is going to result in a touchdown. And the kick is good now, extending their lead 48-0. William Brazil getting on the board yet again now for the California Vulcans. So we have Jalen Bell now in the backfield. He's going to run it in just like that, extending the lead even more. And now he's handing it out, and it is going to be into the touchdown for California.
Exciting Vulcan football is back this fall. September 10th at Cheney. September 17th versus Millersville. September 24th at Seton Hill. October 1st versus Slippery Rock. October 8th versus Indiana. October 15th at Clarion. October 22nd versus Gannon. October 29th at Mercyhurst. November 5th versus Edinburgh. November 12th versus East Stroudsburg. Catch all the action on CUTV and WCAL. CUTV's High School Football Game of the Week. Springdale at Jeff Morgan. Avella at California. Bell Vernon at Ringgold. Greensburg Central Catholic at Charleroi. Waynesburg at Southmoreland. Baldwin at Connellsville. Beth Center at Brownsville. Fraser at Bentworth. Bishop Canavan at Carmichael. The longest running high school coverage in southwestern PA is on CUTV.
CUTV News Center is California University of Pennsylvania's award-winning student television newscast. Your source for live, local, late-breaking news. Forecast from the CalU Weather Center. The region's latest entertainment news. Vulcan sports highlights and regional scoreboards. With television news coverage you can't get anywhere else. Watch it live Thursdays on CUTV and on demand. CUTV News Center. Online all the time.
Brazil on for the kick. It's up, and it is good. So Brazil gets the Vulcans on the board first. Going back to throw. Down the middle of the field, and he has a receiver, and it's wide open. Brown, touchdown. Strong, hands off to the fullback, and he's into the end zone. That's number 26. That is Khalil Howard. Screen pass, great blocking, and he'll get into the end zone. That's Darden. It's quickly 20-3. Harris, back to throw. Deep downfield, he has a receiver. That's Kawan Scott. It's a touchdown. Kawan Scott on the deep connection. Baltimore, kick up, and it was almost blocked, and it is up and good. But Harris looks to throw. Throws it over Fiore. He's going to get into the end zone. Touchdown, California. Strong. Downfield. There's a man wide open. And that's going to be a Seton Hill touchdown. And just like that, that play comes back to haunt California. Harris throws. Downfield. Kawan Scott yet again. Touchdown, California. California responds with a deep ball of their own to make it a 7-point game. Baltimore's kick up, and it is good. Franklin's in the end zone anyways. Touchdown, California. Harris fakes handoff to Fiore, and it's complete. Gary Brown, he has a block. He's going downfield. He's got no one there. Gary Brown breaks a man. Touchdown, California. And California, down 21-3, is back in this game. As well, and it's intercepted. Moreland steps out of bounds. Downfield, intercepted.
And welcome back to the Gary Dunn Show right here on CUTV. And I'm Gary Smith along with Coach Dunn. And Coach, we just saw highlights from last year's game against Seton Hill, and they're the opponent this coming Saturday at 3 o'clock on the road. I know it's early in the week, but they're also they're 3-0 this year. You guys are 2-0. It's a pretty good matchup on paper of two undefeated teams going into the first weekend of PSAC West play. What have you seen on film just on Seton Hill so far?
Yeah, talented bunch. Really playing well right now. Our 3-0, like you said, had a big weekend this weekend in a cross game versus Kutztown. Offensively, very explosive. I think they're averaging over 400, close to 430 yards, with 150 of those being rushing. So they're throwing the ball quite a bit, but also able to run it effectively, trying to be balanced similar to us. So very explosive offense. Defensively, they like to apply pressure. Got a really fast defense, the fastest defense we'll have seen so far, and they rally to the ball, and they're great at tackling. So it's going to be a challenge, that's for sure.
And I know we saw Seton Hill's one of those teams that's kind of tough to get a handle on as a fan because, I mean, they've only had football for about 10, 11 years. Their first recruiting class was phenomenal. They made the playoffs, ultimately losing here at California. And then they had a few bad years in their final years in the WVIAC before that merged or morphed into the MEC. But ever since it seems like Coach Collins has come to Greensburg a few years ago, it seems like they've been trending upwards. Absolutely.
They've done a nice job recruiting. We've recruited a lot of guys that you know, the same guys in the area, you know, from talking to the coaching staff and looking at their roster. And I believe this is his fourth year, so you can really see him putting his stamp on the program with recruiting and like you said, trending upwards. But they're playing great football right now, so it's going to be a big challenge on Saturday.
And this is a team in a series since they've joined the PSAC a few years ago that, you know, it started to become a pretty good rivalry for California, not just in football because, I mean, we've been fortunate enough to beat them every game, but across the board in basketball, both men's and women's, soccer, baseball. I mean, figure familiarity breeds contempt, and they're only 35 minutes down the road, by far and away our closest competitor.
Yeah, it is. And it's turned into what seems like a nice rivalry. You know, with obviously they're going to recruit local guys the same way we are, so a lot of familiarity there with players and coaching, and so it's a nice challenge.
Now, what are some of the things you want to tell your team going into this game? Because obviously, first 2 weeks they've handled business very well, but you know, conference games, divisional games are a lot different than even crossover games, even though those are, you know, in the conference, but you know, divisional games, you know, that you're playing for this is the first week you're to ultimately reach a goal of winning the PSAC West.
Absolutely. It's all about us. We try and put the focus on us. We've had a lot of self-inflicted wounds the last couple of weeks, especially Saturday. We had way too many pre-snap penalties. We had way too many penalties in general. You know, so we've got to get better at that. We've got to be more disciplined. We talked about that at the team meeting yesterday. We're going to talk about it again today. And we've got to clean some things up because each week, and this week no different, the opponent's 3-0 and they're a good opponent. So we've got to make sure that we're not beating ourselves and that we're putting our best foot forward. I'm not sure that we did that the first 2 weeks for 60 minutes. We've got to be much better at that this week.
And is that something that you can kind of coach out or address during like practice sessions, or is that just something, one of those things, you know, we're only 2 games into the season, is that just because it's early in the season?
Well, I don't want to use that excuse. You know, the pre-snap penalty is the one we got to get better at. We had a big offsides on defense this week that kind of gave them another first down. We had way too many pre-snap penalties on offense. You know, the aggressive penalties, the things during the whistle, we understand it's football and that's going to happen. We've got to be better at the pre-snap stuff and not beating ourselves before we snap the football. Things we'll work on, try and put them in those situations on Saturday, you know, for Saturday, you know, starting with a play clock and just working and preaching and getting the guys to understand the big picture.
And that'll be this Saturday, 3 o'clock. Make sure you take a nice, I think it's going to be a good day. I looked at the weather early in the week. I don't think there's going to be any monsoons or anything. So make the short trip out to Greensburg because, I mean, that's a wonderful place to watch a game. And it's going to be a great game because, you know, conference play is a little different, as we just talked about, than a non-conference game. And again, Coach, it's another first for you, your first PSAC West Divisional road game.
Absolutely. We're going to get through all these first pretty quick. It is, and hopefully we'll have a big crowd up at Greensburg. I know we got a lot of alumni in the area, and it'd be nice to have some support there. and I'm sure we will. I know some of our older alumni reached out to me and that live in that area. They're coming this week, so it's going to be great to see them.
And I know, I mean, I've been getting texts and little messages on emails and stuff like that. It seems like there's a very good buzz around the program right now. We saw Cheney, good traveling crowd. I know a lot of the friends and family, but we have a lot of alumni out in the Philadelphia area, and a very good crowd for the home game. So I don't see why there's any reason people shouldn't travel. Yeah,
travel, come see us and help us this weekend up in Greensburg.
And let's take a look around, because we talked about this week. Let's take just a brief look back and button up what happened in the PSAC so we can see what else is going on across the conference. And we'll take a look at the PSAC scoreboard. Like I said, just putting an exclamation or a period and turn the page on last week. Slippery Rock over Lock Haven, 59-23. And this was a game, the next one here, Edinburgh-Westchester, I believe was double overtime. And Edinburgh has turned things around 3-0.
Absolutely. Coach is doing a nice job up there, putting a bunch of points up. The West had another great weekend. If you see 3 out of 4 on that board there, Clarion, didn't pull it out against Ship, but the other three West teams scored a lot of points in that Gannon Bloomsburg game. Bloomsburg's usually traditionally a power over there, and Gannon's 3-0 too. So it's going to get a lot tougher starting this week.
And in both of those games, like I said, if putting on paper, like I said, I would think you'd have to think, at least as a fan, those could be a little bit upsets. As you said, Bloomsburg's always been one of those teams that's been towards the top. And Shippensburg's we saw last year and last couple of years, they can put up a lot of points. And let's take a look at the remainder of the games over this past weekend. East Stroudsburg over Mercyhurst, 34-31. IUP over Cheney, they made the trip out to Philadelphia this past week, 55-0. And then this week's opponent, Seton Hill, over Kutztown, 44-22. And did you see anything on tape in that game that stood out whenever you're breaking it down?
Yeah, both sides, they're playing extremely well. Both sides, their offense is very efficient. Like I said, I think they're averaging 150 yards rushing, and they're throwing it all over the place. Got a nice group of receivers, got a returning quarterback that's doing a really nice job. And then their offensive line's a big bunch that likes the road grade a little bit, but also can protect the passer. So we're going to have our hands full there. Defensively, they really took it to Kutztown there. They got after it a little bit, flying to the football, created some turnovers. So it's going to be a big one, that's for sure.
And after we saw the scores, let's take a look at the standings after the final week of crossover play. Once again, none of the teams in the PSAC have played a divisional game, so a lot of zeros and zeros on the left. But here's the West, and we mentioned last week there's not one team in the West that has a 0 in the win column. That's very competitive after the first 3 weeks of the season.
Absolutely, 6 undefeated teams. So that's something there. I don't know if I like that graphic or not.
Well, as long as the California.
I like you guys putting us up top there. I appreciate that.
And let's take a look at what's happening in the PSAC East as we saw last week and we saw again this week. The West continued to, I think, take it to the East. Bloomsburg 2-1, East Stroudsburg 2-1. No undefeated teams there, and 2 teams, Kutztown and Lock Haven, both 0-3 on the season.
Yeah, it's been interesting to be back in this league and watch the 2 crossover weeks and see where everybody stands. But you can't compare scores. Mm-hmm. It's every week's going to be a grind. No matter who beats who, you see those polls at the end of the year. So and so could beat Notre Dame because you can't get into that stuff. Every week you got to show up and play and battle and be ready to compete, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.
And that's what I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'll talk to a bunch of my friends that we're obviously at our game, but they'll be texting what's going on in other games, talking on the phone or hanging out at a local watering hole. But people don't realize how tough the PSAC is to compete in, because not only do you have a lot of quality teams, it's 2 divisions, and there's out of the 16, 18 teams, there's probably a good 10 or 11 that will still be in the playoff discussion late into the season.
Absolutely. Every week, especially in the West this year, is an absolute grind. You got to be ready to go. We talked to our team about that, and like I said earlier, we put the focus on us. It's about California being the best that California can be. We're not really worried about anybody else. We're going to try and take care of ourselves, and at the end of the year, we'll look up and see where we're at. But it's a week-to-week grind for us.
And this week's opponent is Seton Hill, and there's a multitude of ways you can stay in touch with the game. But first, we're going to look at the schedule around the PSAC. Last week, everything was early. It seemed like the latest game was at 3 o'clock, but we have games across the board. As we mentioned, it's the first weekend of divisional play, so you have IUP at Edinburgh, and that's an interesting one because, as we said, Edinburgh 3-0, turning it around, and IUP is 2-0, and they've been playing good ball for a couple years.
Absolutely. Interesting schedule, around the league this week. from us at 3 o'clock and all the games you just mentioned there. It's going to be an interesting week in the PSAC. The Gannon and Slippery Rock, both those teams are undefeated. Obviously, us and Seton Hill are both undefeated. Indiana and Edinburgh both all undefeated. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, where we're at the end of the week. But this is going to be a 10-week, 11-week race, I believe, in the PSAC. So like I said, you got to show up every week, and we're not going to scoreboard watch. If any of our players are watching, we understand we're not going to scoreboard watch. We're going to try and take care of our business and play the best football that we can play.
And that business is this Saturday. As I was mentioning before, we took a look around the PSAC. A lot of ways you can stay in touch and keeping track of what's going on Saturday. First, obviously, drive to Greensburg. It's a pretty easy drive, but if you can't make that, CUTV will be broadcasting the game live on our YouTube page, CUTV Sports 1, at 3 o'clock. And the easiest thing to do is to go to CUTV Sports 1 and subscribe. And then whenever that game goes live, you'll get a notification on either your phone or your whatever mobile device you're using, Roku device on TV, Google Chrome, and you can click to that and watch the game live. If you're driving around enjoying a nice Western Pennsylvania afternoon, you can listen to the game live on 91.9 FM, WCAL. Since it's a road game this week, we're able to have the transmitter on, and that road game will be, so if you want to go outside and do some yard work and listen to the game, you can do that. But once again, I suggest going to the game and put on your favorite red and black outfit and cheer on the Vulcans to victory. And if for some reason you don't want to watch it or listen to it, you can also keep up to date with the live stats that will be provided for the game. So, Coach, that's it for week 2. The season always goes quick, but
it's flying by. It is. I appreciate you guys following us and putting us on, and it's a big help to us. Our kids really enjoy it. I think it helps us with recruiting. So we appreciate everything you guys do for us, and it's great to see you guys on the road with us.
And we look forward to making that trip, and good luck this Saturday against Seton Hill, and we'll be back next week for your show to break down Seton Hill and look ahead to the next week's opponent. So for Coach Dunn, I'm Gary Smith. You've been watching the Gary Dunn Show right here on CUTV, and we'll see you next week.